I just would like to point to two specific issues that were discussed. First, I think the committee, or I suggest the committee should recommend that all member states to the CRC provide adequate information to families of death row prisoners, so that there is sufficient transparency in the system, and especially for the children. And secondly, that the committee recommends that state parties allow last visits and facilitates last visits to death row inmates before execution. And just to point out some good practice, even China is now starting to do that. They are now allowing, well, they're starting to allow final visits for all death row inmates. Thank you.
Thank you. I already accept this, and I would like to say that I expect not to do that, because there should be no any death penalty to the parents. I hope. Okay, please.
Angus Mulready-Jones from Prison Advice and Care Trust. One thing that's been mentioned quite strongly was around children knowing about the process and being told the truth about their position and the position of their parent within the system. And I think that should be there should be a quite strong recommendation on that, because across different countries they are sometimes more mealy-mouthed than they have to be on that subject. The other one is on the collection of data. It's great that we would be able to say that in England and Wales we have X number of children of prisoners, but it would be great if that data was transferred to someone who could do something with it in supporting that, whether that be an NGO or a local authority, or any other body. But simply collecting the information for the information's sake is interesting, but doesn't really lead us to a solution.
Thank you. You first and you after. Yeah.
Nancy Laux from Families Outside. One thing that we haven't actually mentioned explicitly is whether it's worth recommending a general principle of housing the prisoners as close to their families as possible. Certainly in some countries it's a deliberate policy to separate them as far as possible as an additional aspect to the punishment, so that it's not physically possible for the families to travel often thousands of miles to see the person who's in prison. And that just seems to be a fairly useful general principle to try to keep those distances as small as possible.
It has been mentioned before. Sorry. It has already been mentioned before, but I wanted to underline it for specific recommendation. If the parents are in a different country, what should be the protocol for the children and the parents to have contact? And what should the inter-country mechanisms be?
Thank you for this question. In fact, it's in the Article 10 already. It means that all state parties need to set up some mechanism, some system to facilitate the communication between children and their parents. That is okay. Okay, you first and you, and okay, 3.
I would like, Sabine Skuta, German Red Cross and National Coalition Germany. I would like to underline the point of the support for the parents, either the parents which are not incarcerated and as well as the parent which is incarcerated, from the very beginning to keep his role as a parent, and to do this with all the capabilities and possibilities he can. This begins with the telling. For example, I am in a prison now. This, of course, this could be done by the parent himself or herself, and of course with the special support of a social service and thinking about how to do this in an appropriate way, and up to the end of all the programs before the release. So the point is to support parents from the beginning to the end of all the process to be parents, and not, as it is done sometimes also in Germany, to keep the rights of the parents in the air, or abandoned in the meantime. Thank you.
Deborah Cowley, Action for Prisoners' Families. I'd like to propose that authorities should have responsibility to ensure that arrangements have been made for the care of children at all stages of the criminal justice process. So that's arrest and sentencing and resettlement and any other times.
Thank you. Is there anyone to? Okay, please.
Owen Gill, Bernardo's. We've talked about children and we've talked about older children, but we haven't, as far as I'm aware, talked about very young children in terms of their in terms of their right to understand and their right to have a voice heard through research and other ways. And I think we ought to be making a point about, if appropriate, very young children being supported in this way. In Bernardo's in the UK, we have done some work in our children's centres with children in this position, so in our centres for under fives.
Jason Day, Chris Uppsala, Sweden. I recommend that technology should be included as a viable option for children of incarcerated parents.
Thank you. Okay, please.
Well, this is a topic that was touched upon time and time again today, but just to reiterate that we feel it is important that all security measures be made compatible with the child's right to maintain contact with an imprisoned parent, regular contact with an imprisoned parent, so that the right of the child is not subordinate to the needs for public security. And that in the case of public security, for example, if a prisoner is transferred to a remote prison, that it is the state who provides support in order for that contact to be ensured in terms of, for example, financial assistance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I suppose that we should come to an end because or else my colleague will not have enough time to do her works. Thank you very much for everyone to share very good ideas, recommendations, opinions, any good things that many things I have not heard before. So thank you again and see you again at the finally. Thank you.